Dwayne Wade is, quote, seriously concerned about Donovan Mitchell's desire to stay with the Jazz, per report. Okay, let me see. We can do Dinwiddie, Harris, Bruce Brown, Claxton, and a future first for Donovan Mitchell. Okay, yeah, let's do that. I've actually got a video coming up about trades exactly like that, so be on the lookout for that. Okay, but for real, we're not making Donovan Mitchell trade machine videos today. We're not making up fake Donovan Mitchell trades. We're not even talking about the possibility that this guy is going to leave soon. What we are talking about is this specific report, what it means for the future of the Jazz, and the legitimacy of it. Because even though I don't think Donovan Mitchell is leaving tomorrow, I do think that this is an important indication of the situation in Utah, where we're at with player movement in the NBA now, and something that could impact this team long term. With those things said, what's up? My name is Tucker. Let's go and talk about it. Okay, so let's get to the article itself. As I said, Dwayne Wade is, quote, seriously concerned about Donovan Mitchell's desire to stay with the Jazz. This is Brian Windhorst on a podcast, and here's a couple of quotes from him. He says, I do think that Dwayne Wade, who is now a part owner with the Utah Jazz, who Governor Ryan Smith brought in to be a co-owner, but also in to be an advisor, is seriously concerned about Donovan Mitchell's desire to stay there long term. There's the headline. Dwayne Wade is going to influence changes, and the reason that Dwayne Wade is going to influence changes is because of the way Donovan Mitchell saw this season unfold. Specifically, how his ankle injury was handled in the playoffs really unnerved him. He was in a bit of a rough spot with the franchise near the end of the year. So, the way I read that is Dwayne Wade is there because the franchise is concerned about Donovan Mitchell's relationship with the team, as well as the possibility that he could leave way down the road. And they want to get ahead of that situation, which is the smart thing to do. But I think the first thing to talk about here is, why would Donovan Mitchell be unhappy in Utah? They've been a successful team. He's had individual as well as team success there. Yes, maybe they haven't, made the conference finals or the finals, but still, they've been a good team, right? Well, here's a couple of reasons why Donovan Mitchell could be a little bit uncomfortable in Utah. I do think that tensions do still exist between him and Rudy Gobert and just kind of what happened with when the season was suspended. I don't think it's anything all that dramatic, but I do think that it is still a bit of a factor there. The relationship between those two guys and just kind of the way that situation developed. As I mentioned, no Western Conference Finals appearances. They were in contention and certainly one of the teams that could have won the title this year, and they just did not perform in the postseason, despite having a really good roster. Frustrations, as the article mentions, with how the ankle injury was handled, which is still a really bizarre situation, by the way, because, yeah, the Jazz lost game one of the Grizzlies, but then they won that series 4-1. It really didn't impact it the rest of the way, but he seemed really frustrated by it. And I don't know if he just felt like it was a little bit disorganized because he was under the impression the entire time that he was going to play, and then all of a sudden he wasn't. I don't know what exactly went into that situation or why he would be as frustrated as he was publicly and privately, but still, that is a point to consider. And then the last part of this is just, you have to be worried about this kind of stuff now, especially if you're Utah, because this is just the way that player movement works now. It doesn't matter if Donovan Mitchell just signed an extension. It doesn't matter if you have a good team around him. You have to constantly be concerned, if you're a smaller market team, about the possibility of players as talented as Donovan Mitchell switching teams, asking to be traded, and leaving in free agency. It's just the reality of the way things are for smaller market teams, or for really any team in the NBA now. Now, as I mentioned, Mitchell quite literally just signed a massive max contract rookie extension. He cannot become a free agent until 2025. He did the thing that every single rookie does when they come into the league. They do their first 4 or 5 years of their rookie contract, they sign an extension to get the most money possible, and then they'll worry about potentially leaving either on that contract or once they're looking for their second one as they approach free agency, in this case for Mitchell, in 2025. We talked about this in the Luka Zion video the other week. This is just how it works. It doesn't matter if you're truly unhappy. It doesn't matter, what the situation is. Everybody signs the max rookie extension, even if they are unhappy, even if they're in a situation that they don't especially want to be in. Signing that extension is more of an indicator of wanting to go ahead and get that big payday, because you are on that rookie contract initially that is not commensurate value for most players that do become like really good players on those rookie contracts. You're not being paid to the same level that you normally would be. You get that first contract and then you worry about everything else. It's not necessarily an indication of happiness with a particular franchise, but that extension does provide Utah plenty of leverage should Donovan Mitchell wake up tomorrow and decide that he does not want to be a member of the team anymore. Now, here's what I would say about this, because I know there are going to be people that watch this video, read this headline, and think, why are we talking about this? This seems to be way early. There's nothing to be concerned about in Utah. Here's what I would say. somebody has to be next up with the Lakers. Somebody has to be next up with the Clippers. Somebody has to be whoever's going to end up in New York. Eventually, LeBron is going to retire, and Anthony Davis is going to be a running mate. Eventually, same thing with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Maybe they leave or they retire. And those are always going to be coveted spots, being the guys in LA. And with the way that player movement exists now and the way that these franchises continue to position themselves to bring in star players, you always have to be concerned about that possibility that Donovan Mitchell looks at his situation in Utah, and he could love every one of his teammates. He could be thinking, man, I love playing with Rudy Gobert and Joe Ingles. He could love every single one of those guys and really feel like they have a legitimate shot at a title. But he can still look around and think, man, it's really cool these guys get to play for the Lakers. I love the Lakers growing up, or I really like the idea of being in LA full time. He can still look around and think how nice that must be, and that he only has so many years in the NBA and certainly so many years, in his prime at the top level of his game, and that he would rather experience those as a Laker than he would in Utah. That's just kind of the reality of human nature in this type of situation. I'm not saying that's the way Donovan Mitchell thinks, but I'm saying that I wouldn't be surprised if it is. And the example that people are going to continue to use when stuff like this comes up about the possibility of guys leaving in free agency is Giannis, right? They're going to point out the fact that Giannis wanted to stay in Milwaukee. Giannis had every opportunity to go to Dallas, to go to Miami, go to a situation where he was going to be paired with another superstar level guy, and ultimately he signs the Supermax and he stays in Milwaukee. That example, I think, exists separately from every domestic player in the league right now. It hasn't really been tested by any international players. Jokic has signed the extension, Luka has signed the extension, and there isn't really an indication that those guys want to leave except for maybe Luka. Really the only guy that it's been an issue with has been Porzingis when he has to be traded from New York. But when it comes to like the free agency aspect of it, it's never really been tested with international players. And I think that Giannis truly felt a sense of loyalty to Milwaukee, and it's not like he showed up to the league and was a highly touted player. Certainly he had potential. There's a reason he was a first-round pick, but I think he really felt a lot of loyalty to the franchise of Milwaukee for believing in him, for helping him to develop into the player that he's become, and he didn't like the idea of just leaving and wanted to give them every opportunity to prove to him that that was the place to be, and ultimately he ended up staying. But I don't think that example really tracks with every domestic star in the league. These guys that grew up looking at the Lakers and the Knicks and thinking, hey, I'd really like to be there, or the Heat, or whatever the case may be. I really don't think that that is a situation that you can compare to Donovan Mitchell's situation as like an example of why he would possibly stay. Now, ultimately, Utah's done a fantastic job of building this team. Gordon Hayward leaves. They bring in Mitchell. They've built everything around him. They've done everything they can to make sure that he is successful. They have a really good front office despite some restructuring there recently. And from a roster building standpoint, like they've done about as good of a job as you can possibly do as the Jazz to build a competent team around Donovan Mitchell. So it's not even like a team success thing. I think it would just be a situation where he would just rather be elsewhere. And I think it's clear that they're aware of this and they're trying to be proactive, whether it be with the front office restructuring, whether it be with Dwayne Wade being there as a part owner, being an advisor to the team and kind of being in Donovan Mitchell's ear. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the next 3 years, Donovan Mitchell requests a trade or says he's unhappy or says he wants to go somewhere else, as Ingles ages, as Conley ages, as Gobert kind of stays the same. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's the next guy or he's the guy that wants to get traded with multiple years left on his deal, right? Ultimately, though, there's no way to know what level of loyalty exists here with Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz. Maybe he is incredibly loyal. Maybe he loves being in Utah. Maybe he really wants to be the guy that builds something. But again, the timeline kind of matches up where somebody has to be the next guy in LA. Someone has to be the next guy with the Lakers or the Clippers or whatever the case may be. And all I'm saying is it's possible that that guy is Donovan Mitchell, right? And I think that this story speaks more to where we're at with the player movement era, whether it be trades or free agency or otherwise, more than anything else, right? It's not an indication that Donovan Mitchell is going to ask out tomorrow or that Donovan Mitchell is going to get traded or anything like that. It's just an indicator of how proactive you have to be as a smaller market team to make sure that you're constantly doing everything you can to retain star players and superstar players. It might not be fair. It might not be a situation that's fantastic for the league, but if you're Utah, you can't really think about the bigger picture. You can only think about building a competent roster and doing what you can to make sure that Donovan Mitchell stays for as long as you can get him to, because he is a fantastic superstar level player, right? Max contract level guy, all NBA caliber player, someone that you can be the focal point of your entire offense, continue to build the right pieces around him as you have done. Hopefully you make some finals runs, and those are kind of the cure-all to these types of situations, right? Not many guys that are making finals runs, unless your name is LeBron, end up leaving and going to a different team. So if they can continue to be successful, get to the Western Conference Finals, get to the finals, you don't have to worry about Donovan Mitchell leaving. But if that isn't the case, maybe 2 years from now we could be looking at a situation where Donovan Mitchell just doesn't want to be a member of the Utah Jazz anymore. And I think Utah is right to be concerned and be proactive about it. With those things said, that is going to be the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Leave a like rating on the video as well, and subscribe for more NBA content every single day. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.